What's up, everyone? Jeremy here from MTG Headquarters, continuing your Fate Reforged pre-release prep week. That's a mouthful. So today we're going to look at something a little more simple. Well, not really simple, but one of the core things that's going to help you pre-release is understanding the new mechanics. I want to throw a shout out to Matt Tabak, who compiled a lot of this data for me and made my job a little bit easier. So we're going to start with, I kind of mixed the new mechanics with the old mechanics. So let's see how it goes. The first new mechanic we have is Bolster. Now this is pretty simple mechanic and actually very powerful, but can be hit or miss. So let's go. So to Bolster, first find the creature you control with the least toughness. If there's a tie, choose between those creatures. Then put that number of 1/1 counters equal to the Bolster number. Bolster does not target any creature, and you do not determine which creature is getting counters until you're taking the Bolster action. That's all important for triggers and whatnot. But here's an example of a new Bolster card, Cached Defenses. And we see you pay 3, Bolster 3. Very simple. Choose a creature with the least toughness among creatures you control and put 3 1/1 counters on it. So very good. Obviously, the obvious weakness of this mechanic is simply that you do not have creatures in play, and then it's a dead card in your hand. But other than that, it's pretty good. Whenever this mechanic is attached to a creature or anything else, it's definitely added value. And in situations where you only have one creature, you're just pumping your creature. So definitely an okay mechanic, pretty easy to understand. So if you only have one creature, that's where they go. Otherwise, it's the weakest creature, meaning the toughness, so the second number. If they're tied, then you choose. So it's just pretty much all positive for you. Coming back, in Fate Reforged will be a continuing of the prowess mechanic. I don't know how they decide which mechanics they keep and which ones they ditch, but it's kind of sad they got rid of raid. I thought raid was pretty fun, but that's neither here nor there. So as you all probably know, prowess is simply whenever you cast a non-creature spell, X happens, right? When prowess triggers, it goes on the stack on top of the spell that caused it to trigger, meaning it will resolve first. Once prowess is triggered, it doesn't matter what happens to the non-creature spell. If it gets countered, prowess still resolves, as long as the creature with prowess still exists. So here's a perfect example, a new card from Fate, Dragon Bell Monk. A 2/2 Vigilance for 3 with prowess. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, this creature gets +1/+1 till end of turn. Prowess is probably still one of the best aggressive mechanics out there. When I draft, I tend to try and draft Jeskai aggro. A lot of Jeskai, a lot of active treasons and spells, and it's very difficult to deal with if they get over on you quickly. But again, it's a dead mechanic if you don't have any non-creature spells. So when you're drafting, you want to draft around it, and when you're building your sealed deck at pre-release, you want to make sure you include a healthy number of non-creature spells to trigger your prowess. Now, if you don't have any good non-creature spells, maybe you don't want to play that particular clan. Now we go back to Delft. This one's got so much text on it, I just didn't throw a picture on it. But as you guys know, Delft's been around for a while. As you're paying for a spell with Delft, you can exile cards from your graveyard. Each card you exile this way pays for 1. Now that's colorless mana, so Delft is only used for colorless mana. Delft cannot pay for any colored mana in the spell's mana cost. Also, you cannot exile more cards than the amount of colorless mana in the mana cost, meaning if you cast Treasure Cruise, and what is that, 7 and 1 with Delft, if you have 10 cards in your graveyard, you can't exile all 10 and float that 3 mana, is all that's saying. So if you have something that has a casting cost 5 colorless, 1 black, that just means you can substitute the 5, any number of that 5, for exiling cards in your graveyard. You don't have to use it. I try to save it if I have multiple Delft cards. And just like with your pre-release, you don't want to run too many Delft cards because you're not going to have fuel to get the value out of them. Generally, they're overcosted, right? Like Sultai Scavenger, 6 mana cost, but it's Delft. Or Hooting Mandrills from Consultar Kiers, 5 and 1 for a 4/4 Trampler. These cards are way overcosted, but they're great when you can cast them for a single green mana or a single black mana swamp. or forest. So when you're building your pre-release deck, if you want to build around Delve, you want to put things in there that fuel Delve, tag on scheming, bitter revelation, stuff like that. I don't know the new cards offhand that will power Delve, but you want to look for stuff that are, puts things in your graveyard, scout the borders, things like that. But you don't want to get too crazy. I don't think Delve is the greatest limited mechanic, in my opinion. I wouldn't build around it because you only have 40 cards anyway. But it's important you understand how it works either way. Now we're on to Dash. This is a new mechanic that's featured in Alicia's Vanguard. Dash is an alternative cost found on creature spells. So as you cast a spell with Dash, you can pay its Dash cost instead of paying its mana cost. If you do, the creature has haste, so it can attack that turn. But at the beginning of the next end step, you'll return that creature from the battlefield to its owner's hand. So really unique mechanic. I don't know how it was going to interact very well. So let's look at Alicia's Vanguard here. Very simple. 4 mana for a 3/3. But it has Dash of 3 mana. So let's say you have them outpowered on board, or they don't have any creatures up. You can pay 3, hit them for 3, and then it comes back to your hand. You can continue to pay that Dash cost over and over again if you want, or you can pay the 4 mana to keep it a permanent creature. We'll see how Dash goes. I see it being good in like top deck scenarios as a finisher, but it's really not a great use of your mana, in my opinion. Obviously, this mechanic fits well with Mardu. We'll see how it plays out. I don't love it, but it adds versatility to cards, which is always good. So now we'll go back to Ferocious. Simple mechanic from those around here in Kanzatark here. Generally reads something like, if you control a creature with power of 4 or greater, then this happens. So the more verbose explanation is simply, some Ferocious abilities are activated abilities. If the effect depends on a number of creatures you control with a power of 4 or greater, that number is counted as the ability resolves. Other abilities require that you control a creature with 4 or greater to even activate the ability. For those abilities, once you activate the ability, it doesn't matter what happens to the creature. Now, this is directly this matters when we're talking about instant speed removal or bounce spells, things like that, right? So even if it dies in response to the ability still resolves. So things like Savage Punch in Kanzatark here, right? It's a fight card. It makes 2 creatures fight. But if you have a creature of 4 power or greater, your creature gets +2/+2. Or Rise to the Challenge, or Rise of whatever it is, where you pay 2 and a green, and all creatures available to block a particular creature have to block it, which is a great card. But if you have a creature with 4 or greater power, that creature becomes indestructible, which creates all sorts of amazing shenanigans. It's a very powerful card. It's not played enough in draft, I don't think. But you'll see Ferocious ability on creatures, on spells, on all sorts of stuff. So you just want to make sure you're reading your cards, and you want to, if you're going to play a lot of Ferocious heavy cards, make sure you play enough creatures that you can trigger Ferocious, right? You don't want a bunch of 3-power creatures and you have Ferocious benefit cards in your hand, right? So as you're building your sealed deck or you're drafting, if you get good Ferocious spells, you want to make sure you build around them. And lastly, we come to Manifest. Now, this ability, I think, I don't like it. You may like it. I think it creates an extremely messy board state. Fortunately, I play a ton of MTGO. That's where I play mostly, except for my Wednesday night drafts. So it doesn't really matter to me because MTGO will keep it nice and clean. But let's go through this, and I'll try to break it down for you. So when you manifest a card, you put the card onto the battlefield face down, just like you would a morph. This disguises its true identity from your opponents. While it's face down, it's a 2/2 colorless creature with no name, no abilities, and no creature types. Face down creatures are creatures in every way. They can attack, block, spells and abilities that target creatures can target them. They can be enchanted by auras and equipped by equipment. Right? So we're used to all of that with morphs. anytime you have priority, you can turn a manifested creature face up. It's just like unmorphing it if it's a creature card. You can do this by revealing its mana cost and paying that cost. This also lets your opponent see that it's a creature card. As soon as the card is face up, it has normal characteristics, just like its regular cast. It's cast that way. If you manifest a non-creature card, a spell, or something like that, it cannot be turned face up in this way. If you happen to manifest a card with morph, you can turn it face up by either paying its mana cost, if it's a creature card, or by paying its morph cost. So if you end up manifesting a spell, if I'm understanding this correctly, you cannot cast it. So that is my biggest gripe with it. When I first saw this ability, I thought maybe it just meant you could cast it on your turn. But maybe I'm not totally understanding how Manifest works. But it's very similar to Morph. My biggest complaint with Manifest is that you're going to have board states here at pre-release with a ton of new players that have to face a bunch of cards that are turned upside down. Morphs, Manifest, I don't think it's conducive to growing or to making the game easier to learn as my printer starts printing for some phantom reason. So I'm just not a fan of it because it really complicates a game, and as a mechanic for new players at pre-release, it's going to be complex. Now maybe I'm not giving people enough credit and people will just figure it out and it's easy peasy. But that's also why I'm making this video. I'm making sure that everyone understands how these abilities work and how they interact with each other. And so now that you understand a little bit about the abilities of Fate Reforged, knowing that you're going to get 4 Fate Reforged packs, maybe this will help you pick whichever clan you want to run and get you ready to dominate your pre-release coming up this weekend. I hope these videos are helping you guys. If you are, make sure you crush that thumbs up button, maybe share it with a friend or two, and we'll see you guys out at pre-release. Hope you enjoyed the video, and if you haven't already, check out some of our most popular playlists from MTG vlogs, sick gameplay videos, new product breaks, and some insane vintage openings. I upload 3 to 4 new Magic the Gathering videos every week, so if you haven't already, please take a moment to crush that subscribe button to join one of the fastest growing Magic the Gathering channels on YouTube. Talk to you later.